As Deandre Ayton struggles, Jaxson Hayes is thriving. Is it time for the Lakers to change their starting center? That's next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers first listen of every day, Monday through Friday, sometimes on weekends, even on holidays, and now even more than once a day as we join you once again for one of these mini shows, whatever we didn't name it yet. You can help us give a title to these things, but whether you're getting it through Apple, Spotify, maybe one of the 37,000 plus subscribers to the Locked On Lakers YouTube page, no matter how you're doing it, part of making the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network in this or any other known universe. I'm Brian Kamenetsky with Andy Kamenetsky. Cover the Lakers for nearly 20 years for outlets like the LA Times, ESPN, for The Athletic. And if there's a big talking point going on right now, Andy, among Lakers fans, it has to do with the center position, particularly after Thursday night's win against the Mavericks when Jaxson Hayes played arguably his most complete game in his time as a Laker. 34 minutes, 16 points on 8 of 10 shooting, 7 rebounds, 4 assists, a block, 3 steals. He, of course, starting in part, really not in part, entirely because Deandre Ayton, once again, unable to play with a knee injury. But overall, Andy, if you want to look at the trend line, Jaxson has played better on a per-minute basis, has been more productive than Deandre Ayton on a per-minute basis over the last, certainly last month. Would you even
I would really say since 2026 began. Like if you look at their minutes over the course of their stats and a little bit of the advanced ratings over the course of the season, DeAndre Ayton's averaging roughly 13 points, 8.5 rebounds, and a block in 28 minutes. Jaxson Hayes in 18 minutes, 7 points, 4 rebounds, and a little bit under 1 block per game. Their plus minus and their net ratings are roughly the same. DeAndre's is slightly better. They're both roughly neutral-ish in terms of the overall effect for them over the course of the season. But if you're looking at just 2026, since the calendar started a new year, Jaxson Hayes has been dramatically outplaying Ayton in terms of the overall effect. Like the numbers are still... Like the raw numbers are still in DeAndre's favor simply because he plays about 10-ish more minutes than Jaxson per game. But in 2026, Jaxson Hayes has the second best net rating on this team. Number 1, by the way, Jared Vanderbilt in 2026. Small victories. I've been yelling at JJ for a while. Put him back in the damn rotation, dude. But Jaxson Hayes has the second best net rating in 2026, 113.5 offensive rating, 109 defensive rating. DeAndre Ayton has a minus 2.5. Those numbers match the eye test, where DeAndre's had a few good games scattered throughout 2026. There have been times where I think he has played better than the numbers will tell you. And the numbers are the numbers, but sometimes they don't tell the whole story. But his overall effect, I think, has been all over the place. I think the outward energy that people are always watching for with DeAndre, like he is a guy that the body language doctors are always examining, and it has not always been as good in 2026. Maybe it is the byproduct of that knee that has cost him 5 games in 2026 and 3 of the last 4. But the bottom line is Jaxson in 2026 has been outplaying DeAndre, and I don't think it's particularly close.
And I think even beyond just the head-to-head, you can look at Ayton's numbers and just compare his November splits: 16.5 points, 9 rebounds a game, 76% shooting, which is probably not sustainable. But compare that to January, that dropped to a 12 on 60% shooting, and still a pretty robust 8.5 rebounds. But the trend line is going down. February, he's averaging 9 points a game, in part because he's only taking 5 shots a game. So even though the shooting percentage is back up, just not as involved. What is interesting. One of the things that is interesting about this, we can cover this, over the course of this little show here, is I think two things are definitely true. One, Lakers fans like Jaxson Hayes a lot more than they like Deandre Ayton, which is saying something, because if you go back to the end of last season, Lakers fans did not like Jaxson Hayes.
No, they didn't think he was an NBA player.
And part of the reason they like Jaxson better is because they don't like DeAndre Ayton. And I think, the antenna are always up and out and hypersensitive to any drop off in Ayton's play, which you don't need the hypersensitive antenna to notice. But the other side of this, we can break after this for a quick second, is that Jaxson is a better player now than he was at the end of last season. I think people recognize it, every year you get the guy who put on 20 pounds of muscle and and 97% of the time you either don't notice or the guy is super slow. It actually makes them worse. Hayes has become a significantly better player adding the weight. He hasn't lost an ounce of athleticism, but he doesn't get bounced around nearly as much. He's still not a great rebounder, but his finishing is a little bit better. The explosiveness is there. He's playing with significantly more confidence. And I think the added strength actually is helping him foul less on the defensive side. He's not getting bounced around. He's in a sturdier, stronger position more often. So that makes a difference too. You're not comparing the Jaxson Hayes of the end of last season. He's a different guy. And whether or not he would be as successful as a starter is a different question, though, and we'll get to that next.
After letting you know that Locked On Lakers is brought to you by Indeed, hiring is not just about finding someone willing to take the job. It's about finding the right person with the right background who can actually help your business moving forward. And if you want candidates who match what you're looking for, Indeed sponsored jobs, that's the move. Instead of hoping the right person just magically stumbles across your post, Indeed helps you match the quality candidates that you want by boosting your job listing to the people who fit your specific criteria, like skills, certification, location. And if I'm hiring, I wouldn't want someone who can just help out, whatever. You can find that. You want someone with real experience who can jump right in. Here's a stat that says it all. In the minute that I've been talking with you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching, more time interviewing the candidates that check all your boxes with Indeed sponsored jobs. Listeners of this show get a $75 sponsored job credit to help your job get the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, do it the right way with Indeed.
Locked On Lakers is also brought to you by Game Time. There is nothing, Andy, like being in an NBA arena, really any place where they're playing live sports, where there's a live production going on, some kind of live thing. Music could be whatever you want. Crowds, energy, movement. Getting tickets, though, that part has not always been so simple. And that's why Game Time has become the go-to app for scoring tickets fast without the hassle, because it puts the advantage back where it belongs, with the fans. In our house, we use Game Time most of the time for soccer tickets. So that's Angel City, that's LAFC, and we are using all of the features. I love the upfront pricing. I know exactly what the all-in price is going to be before I pay for it. There's no hidden fees. There's none of that. I see it all before I decide what I'm going to pay for. And the kids like it because they get to see where their seats are inside the arena and what the field is going to look like. Or if you're taking your kid to Disney on Ice, what the characters are going to look like, because you get to see that too. You know exactly where you're going to sit and what things are going to look like. No surprises. And it works great. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets for the NBA or otherwise with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. That's code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today, and remember, it's gametime.co, not .com. One of the reasons, though, I do think it helps Andy Jaxson with this splits, and this is independent of the fact that Deandre is just not playing as well. Like he is not playing as well as he was at the beginning of the season. I think that is nobody would argue that against that. It does help, though, that Jaxson is playing more often against backups. So when you ask the question, should they change the starting lineup? I think that is something at least to keep in mind, that the matchups change, that, Jackson's sort of status as a high energy guy who can come in with a lot of athleticism. It's mitigated, or it looks different against starting units versus reserve units and all that kind of stuff. So if you made him your consistent 25 or 28 a night guy, I would expect more games where he struggles more than he has over the last month.
Yeah, I think it would depend.
I think I got to bake that in.
Yeah, I think you got to depend. I think it would depend in a lot of ways what the matchup is, if he was the starting center and who you're playing against. I'm not necessarily, by the way, even looking to flip-flop him and Ayton, in part because I actually think Deandre Ayton is a better fit with that starting group as far as having as many playmakers as possible working with him, because while we've talked about before, I do think he has missed Austin specifically in that starting lineup, because I think Austin just has the most consistent pick and roll chemistry with Ayton. I think he is the best at throwing some of those pocket passes that Ayton really likes in the mid post, as opposed to just the pure lobs that you look for with Jaxson from Luka and LeBron, and just he and Ayton have a good chemistry.
Yeah, Austin. I agree.
So, and I think once Austin is back in the starting lineup, that may help. I also think, to be perfectly honest, if you have concerns at all about keeping DeAndre focused and the best version of himself, I don't think, unless it is absolutely just clearly necessary, I don't think moving him to the bench is the move. I think what you do is just decrease his minutes, increase Jackson's minutes as appropriate. I think there will also be a lot of both opportunity and reasons for the Lakers to go smaller in a lot of matchups with either LeBron or Rui or Vando as the small ball center. We've seen some success with that. I think this group is pretty, like we've seen over the course of the season, they need multiple pitches defensively because they're not truly outstanding at any of those pitches. But it's one that they can use. It's one that can often put some of their best players on the floor at the same time. And it's ultimately one that is going to be used. But I think unless it's clear, it just is not working with DeAndre in the starting unit. It's directly playing a role in starting halves poorly. I would keep things as is and just reduce his minutes and solve it that way, or try to solve it that way.
I think the best argument, first thing is I would see what DeAndre looks like, assuming he heals up over the break, and then you have 3, 4, 5 games. Presumably Austin is a starter again at that point. The minutes restriction is lifted. He's back in the starting lineup. I would let it. I think you got to see 4 or 5 games at least with what they see as their starting lineup. The Lakers have a chance to get their preferred starting, what I think now is their preferred starting 5 with the big 3 plus Ayton, and I think Marcus Smart will be the fifth starter.
So do I.
That's their best lineup. And I think you got to see what that looks like with Ayton as your center. But then from there, like I think you hit on all the stuff that I was kind of thinking. Like, I don't think Deandre Ayton, both on this team with this group or just generally, it would make a very good backup center. I think there is a good chance Jaxson won't be quite as good as a starter, which is understandable. I think Ayton would be significantly worse as a backup. So overall, I don't think you're making your center rotation that much better. The one thing I think you could argue is that if Jaxson really is consistently outplaying Ayton, even if it makes Ayton worse overall, and even if Jaxson isn't as good as he was against Dallas, a struggling Dallas team, it should be noted. If you think it would get your team off to better starts, And the Lakers do have a problem in first quarter sometimes. Maybe that's the argument, is you're putting yourself behind the 8 ball because Ayton is playing. I think that puts a lot on Deandre as the reason that's happening. But I don't see a need to do it. I think you kind of hit on all of the stuff I was thinking. You can get most of what you want just by tweaking the rotation.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. At the very least, we're not there yet.
I'm very curious, though, what people think. So leave your questions and leave your comments as to where, maybe we'll even put up a poll as to whether or not you think that the Lakers really would benefit from a switch at starting center. We'll put up something for you to vote on, and then leave your comments in that section. We can talk about it over the course of the week as the Lakers get a little time off for All-Star. Locked on Lakers on YouTube is where you can go hang out with over 37,000 subscribers to the game. We'll keep you updated if anything happens over All-Star weekend. Otherwise, enjoy it, everyone.